People complain about high taxes, but when it comes to the war on entrepreneurship, this pile of rules is just as damaging or worse. Because sometimes taxes get cut, but the rules, they never get cut. They just pass more of them, thousands of new pages every year. Is there no hope? Well, there is, because when I said rules are never cut, that's not entirely true. A couple times in American history, bureaucrats have actually said, let's repeal something. And the results have been terrific. Economists Wayne Layton and Edward Lopez write about that in their book, Madmen, Intellectuals, and Academic Scribblers. So what's this title mean?
Academic scribblers are people who come up with ideas, new ideas. Think of some professor at a university somewhere. Those ideas do nothing until they're picked up and made popular. This is the role of intellectuals. Intellectuals may be writers for the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. They could be talk show hosts, preachers, teachers, even television show hosts. John Stossel. They're people who take ideas and spread them out. And they say, those ideas, those are dangerous, but that idea, that's something to make popular. And as it becomes popular. The madmen are politicians, people who hold the levers of political power. And when an idea becomes very popular, madmen have every incentive in the world to give the people what they want.
Well, why do you call them madmen? They're not all madmen.
It's a play on words from a phrase by John Maynard Keynes, the gentleman who gave us more government spending from the 1930s. He said, madmen in authority, who are voices in the air, are simply distilling the frenzy of some academic scribbler.
All right, well, let's talk about these few wonderful times when rules were removed. Airlines.
Airlines used to be regulated, the fares that people would pay, by the federal government. And in the 70s and 80s, we went to the open market, and what has happened since? Good things have happened.
From 1930s to the 70s, there was the Civil Aeronautics Board, and no airline could raise a price or change a route without their permission. And no new airlines were approved all that time. No JetBlue, no Southwest was allowed to compete. And this was changed by, of all people, Teddy Kennedy.
Teddy Kennedy was one of the madmen in authority who saw an opportunity to create a different set of rules that govern this industry and make a name for himself in his political career.
And what probably woke Senator Kennedy up is that he was in Boston, flying to Washington, and he noticed, hey, the fare is $196 in today's dollars, but LA, San Francisco, about the same distance, the fare is less than half that. What's going on?
The LA San Francisco market was within the state of California, therefore not regulated by the federal government. Boston, D.C., that's travel that crosses state lines. That means the Civil Aeronautics Board has jurisdiction. They regulate, they set the fares, and those fares were higher.
More than twice the size. So even politicians could understand that. They deregulated. Prices are so much lower now. In today's dollars, the price is about a third of what it was.
If you look at the data across the board, in the last 30 years, airline fares are down 50%, and that includes the baggage fees that we're paying now.
Another good news story is in the 70s, there was something called the Interstate Commerce Commission, which did what?
The Interstate Commerce Commission regulated shipping by truck and by railroad. And
they said, we have to, or you'll be overcharged by these greedy companies.
People say that regulation is protecting consumers from greedy companies overcharging them. But when you actually look at what happens, shipping rates were very high under the ICC. And once the ICC was removed of its power initially, and then eventually abolished in 1995, what happened to shipping rates? They went down just like airline rates did.
The politicians said, you can't deregulate, the rates will go way up. They went down.
That's right.
So our final example of one of these rare deregulatory processes, this one's still going on, the spectrum.
It started in the 1930s. The politicians had administrative hearings, which basically meant one bureaucrat said, you get it and you do not. And this went on for decades. Then the federal government moved to lotteries, which basically meant someone literally won the lottery, got the license. Finally, in the 1990s,
and then sold it for a ton of money.
A little old lady wins the auction, wins the license at a lottery, and then sells it to AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, makes millions.
But now the academics said, auction them off.
Some professor named Ronald Coase at the University of Chicago goes on to win a Nobel Prize, but when he proposed this idea, he was ignored. Officials at the Federal Communications Commission that regulates the airwaves actually mocked him.
And yet, it happened. It took unbelievably long. It was even supported by President Carter and President Reagan and President Bush, but finally could only happen under President Clinton.
The push came when they needed the money. President Clinton wanted to balance the budget. The Republicans in Congress also liked that idea. Where's the money going to come from? It wasn't about being more efficient. You had that final push. We can actually raise billions of dollars for the Treasury. Let's try this.
So it can happen if the politicians think they'll make more money from it or if you get the Democrats involved.
That's the story.